How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Tombstone's Takes. I am Tombstone, I'm a librarian, and I like to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and interesting about books, books, books. Tonight, I have a librarian confession for you. When it comes to novels, when it comes to fiction, I don't like cover blurbs. I don't like jacket copy. In fact, I have a hard time getting through half a sentence when it comes to cover blurbs or jacket copy. What's this all about, you say? What's my problem with it? Well, I find two issues with it. The first issue is that cover blurbs and jacket copy, the things that they're supposed to do, and which they typically can do very well, is they're meant to be a hook or a setup or a premise of what's starting out the story at the book. They're only meant to be the starting premise of the story. They don't actually tell you what the story is about. They just typically tell you about where the characters are at the beginning of the story before everything starts to happen. Now, what's my issue with that? Well, my issue with that is that oftentimes, whatever that hook or the premise is just meant to get you into the first page, and after that, they don't actually follow the premise to a satisfying conclusion for me. I might as well say, let me give you a third time. Maybe a fourth time. Let me give you a for instance. There happens to be a series that I love. That book series is Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. I absolutely love it. But there's a couple of hooks or premises or setups that I heard for that came from the author. And the minute that I heard them, I said, wow, that sounds cool. The premise of Mistborn is what would happen if you had a chosen one, and that chosen one was prophesied to defeat the Dark Lord, but the chosen one lost. That was the premise of the book. All it really does for that particular series is shows you that the Dark One, or the Dark Lord, in this case, the character is called the Lord Ruler, but all it really does is it sets you up for this premise that the Lord Ruler is the evil one and has been the evil one for 1,000 years and has been ruling this nation for 1,000 years, and now it's time for either a new chosen one or a new group of chosen ones to rise up and overthrow the evil Lord, the Dark One, whatever you want to call it. So in the end, the basic setup of the story is the same. You have the Dark One, the Dark Lord, the evil one, whoever, they're in charge, and then the upstart heroes have to come and defeat them. There's no really any difference to it. But if you hear that premise, or if you hear the premise for Mistborn that it's Ocean's 11, but in a fantasy world, yeah, that sounds cool, but it doesn't really get you where you're going for the story. Another book that I read recently, one that is beautifully crafted, is a book called The Once and Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow. The book has got lush prose, it's got some interesting storylines, it's got 3 interesting witch protagonists, but that one was billed as Suffragette for Witches, which to me sounded really interesting. So I popped it open, and as I began reading, it just became a standard tale of a witch hunt. You have an evil antagonist who's building up fear and anxiety and telling people that the witches are evil, and they've got to go on the witch hunt for the sake of the city so that they can keep everybody safe. I happen to want to find out a little bit more about what actually happened if witches did suffragette, or suffragette for the witches. That was what I was interested in at the time. Now, I'm not saying that the book isn't bad. I actually happen to enjoy the book. But for me, I had a false promise from reading the cover blurb. So this happens quite often for me, is I'll read the cover blurb and I'll find that there's a false promise there. It taints me to what the actual story is. And that's what I want, is I want to go into the story untainted, free of expectation, and I want to be able to just get into the down and dirty of the story of what's actually happening and read it. Having said that, how do I actually choose to read a story then? What actually helps me? Because I'm going to have another librarian confession in a different video. But what I actually do before I read a story is I might look at the cover art, I might look at the title, and if those things look interesting to me, I'll pick the book up and I'll actually start reading. Forget reading the cover jacket copy, forget reading the cover blurb, forget getting too involved in the cover art. I'll just pick it up and I'll start reading. And that's where the magic happens. If I'm interested in the first sentence, if I'm interested in the first paragraph, I'll move on to the next sentence, I'll move on to the next paragraph. If the first page is good, I'll move on to the next page and keep going. That's how I decide to read a book. I can get that way, I can get through it untainted by maybe a false promise in the premise or the setup. And I'm not saying that all the setups or premises are false promises, but I do feel like those things are hooks that are meant to get you hooked, and I feel like the writing itself and the story should be what really grabs me and gravitates me. I want to go in with all being unbiased towards anything that potentially could happen in the story. So there's my confession for the evening. I don't like cover blurbs or jacket copy. Well, at least for fiction. I might open it up and read the jacket copy or the cover blurb if it's nonfiction. And those things are actually very helpful at times to understanding the work as a whole. Having said that, tell me what you think about cover blurbs, jacket copy. Do they influence you? What is it about the book that makes you want to read it? Do you just open it up and start reading? Or do you have to look at the cover jacket and the jacket copy and the cover blurb until you find that right book? A lot of people are mood readers. They have to be in a certain mood to read what's next. Other people, they have their TBRs and they'll look at the next one and they'll be like, I'm just reading that one. I'm just going to pick it up and just read it because I already know that I like the premise for that. Tell me what you do in the comments. If you like what I do, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.